to episode 230 of the Wheatley podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for listening last week about changes and things like that, and how it affects us, and how it affects me, and all of that stuff. I thought it was an interesting one because I kind of just riffed for about 50 minutes in that office in work. But I do, as you can see, I do have my Wi-Fi sorted for my apartment now, so I'm all right. I'm back online and all that usual crap. I want to update everyone as well. Last week I talked about my driving difficulties and learning how to drive, and I drove for the first time in an automatic in my ninth lesson, and I won't be going back to manual. I can forget about manual. It's just so much easier, so I'm much more confident. Our link is in the description for buying me a coffee and all that stuff. You'll find it there anyway. Our guest this week is a dancer and the owner of the Leinster School of Dance, Shauna Coffey. How are you doing, Shauna?
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Before we get into the usual questions that we asked to start, it's an exciting day for you.
It is indeed. We're
What
off to Ennis for the National Dance Championships. So it's a big day today and tomorrow.
is
Yeah.
it? Obviously a yearly occurrence, is it?
Yeah, well, I started entering the kids this time last year, so it's kind of a full circle for a lot of the regular competitors. So it's a bit of a whirlwind to be like,
Mm.
wow, it's been 1 year and they've grown so much. So it's kind of exciting.
Brilliant. And in case if I could say best of luck to
Thank
yourself
you
and
so
all the
much.
kids, that's
Thank
exciting times.
you.
So we always kind of start with a short history of your upbringing, please.
So I'm from Athlone. I started dancing when I was about 3 or 4, and my grandmother was a ballroom dancer, teacher, all the way up to COVID. She ran social dancing on Sunday nights in the GA Centre in Athlone, and she would get show bands, and it'd be a big event every week in her diary. So I think dancing was always kind of in me. Um, my dad was involved with soccer and League of Ireland. And that was also the other side. So it was dance or football, and I went
Mhm.
dance.
You didn't try football, did you?
No, I did
Okay, fair
not.
enough.
I tried basketball, but I didn't try
Right.
football.
That's fair.
Um, yeah, I don't think I was cut out for it. But I started dancing. I took ballet classes once a week. And then when I got to about the age of 10, 11, I started wanting to go to class early. I got asked to be an assistant and to help with the junior classes, the baby classes. And from there, I kind of just took off, and I loved helping and watching and creating things. And then when I got to my I was in third year actually of school, and I was traveling up and down to Galway, and I was doing kind of grades outside of ballet. So they're more advanced grades. They're
Mhm.
kind of for kids who want to go on and do either teaching or a professional route. So I started doing them. And then in TY, I had loads of time. So I joined a youth ballet company, and I was performing with them. And we did lots of cool, different performances all over the place. And I danced 6 days all the way up to my leaving cert
Wow.
then. And then I auditioned to go abroad and to the Royal Academy of Dance, and I got accepted. And then I got accepted to a dance college in Dublin. And I went with the one in Dublin.
Mhm.
And I've been dancing ever since.
Um, it's kind of a crazy thing to start something, I suppose, at 3 or 4 and to actually continue to do it, because I think not all people, but a lot of people will have the experience of starting something when they're quite young, whether it be football or dance or whatever it is. Like there's loads of obviously different options, and to get maybe a little bit, I don't know, a bit bored of it, maybe rather than annoyed.
Yeah.
But it's I see it in our gym. I see kids coming in to do the wrestling and stuff, and they'll kind of come and go and they'll disappear and stuff. Do you think it was more, or do you think it helped that there was a background in dance in the family? Because it's very, I know that to ask that of a 3 or 4 year old to kind of have that in the back of their minds when they're continuing to do their work. But would you think that helped?
I think it did help, but I think I'm just I see it with one or two of my students I teach now, and I can't really describe it. It's like, it's just a mindset, and you're
Hmm.
so dedicated to this thing, and you're so in love with this thing, and it brings you so much joy, and it just becomes a habit, I would say, that you do it. And then, you know, there is an element of perfectionism, and that you're working towards something, you're always working towards something. So you never kind of like lost interest. There's always an upcoming project, there's always another exam, there's always something you're working towards. Um, and yeah, I suppose it did help that my family had a background in it, and maybe it was just in me, you know?
Yeah, that's and like when you see improvement in something, it becomes more. Um, I don't want to use the word addictive, but you know, you want to do it
Yeah.
more because you can see that improvement. That, you know, if you're stuck on a certain level, you kind of go, ah, well, that I think that's why I didn't play video games, because I get stuck on the first level, like, I can't be bothered. I didn't have the
Yeah.
patience and the will to kind of get through it. But so we always ask as well, Shauna, about when you first became aware of mental health.
I'd say it would be something that in dance you're always aware of. You're
Okay.
always kind of told, you know, don't be worrying, don't be
Hmm.
stressing. Well, I was always told that, you know. There would be other teachers, like some of my past teachers, but my family were always very like, don't be worrying about things.
Hmm.
Um, Try not to be stressed and just enjoy it. And then I suppose in school, I saw like some of my classmates and peers, and they wanted to go on into Trinity, or they wanted to do this and that and the other. And they had so much pressure put on them by themselves, by
Yeah.
school teachers. And I was really blessed that I had such a supportive family and such a supportive environment. Um, so I've been always kind of instilling that now in my teaching, that I always, it's something I'm really passionate about, that because I had people who were supportive, and then I
Hmm.
had other people who weren't supportive, that I'm the supportive person for my students, you know, and I'm
Yeah.
the kind of the cheerleader, if you like.
Is there
Um,
is there a moment for you as you were growing up where you realized that you were actually good?
I don't think so. I always I don't know. I wouldn't think that. You know, I don't think like my teachers would have been very, there would have been, there wasn't a lot of praise.
Mm.
Um, so I suppose like when I was getting distinctions in exams and feedback like that, you're like, wow, okay, I must be okay. But I find it hard to sometimes pat myself in the back. So yeah.
I could get that, and the reason I kind of asked the question because it's not an art form that I've done at all, dance. So if I think of playing the guitar, for instance, or the
Mm.
piano or something, and I can write some sort of a chord structure that sounds really good, or even if I go to something more physical like jujitsu, when I get my first choke on someone, and you go,
Yeah.
"Am I all right at this?" You know, kind of,
Yeah.
I'd be the same as you know. I wouldn't be one to be like pat myself on the back, but I'd hold back on that a little bit. But there's been moments where I've just kind of thought, and maybe that is when you're talking about getting distinctions and stuff. It's that moment where you kind of go, you know, maybe I'm all right.
Yeah, I'm half decent.
Half decent
Half
is
decent.
the best way of putting it. You know,
Yeah.
there's, you know, when I think of someone who's, you know, like yourself, who's done it for, you know, many years now, um, I often wonder about those moments where it becomes a struggle, because then
Mm.
mental health, your own mental health is tested,
Yeah.
and then you need to. Sometimes you can go to your coaches and stuff, but sometimes you have to kind of dig deep. Have you found a lot of times you've kind of found yourself in that position?
Yeah, like you'd find yourself very stressed
Mm.
coming up to exams, coming up to my teaching exams in college. They're really big exams. They were over and back from London. So it's a lot of pressure. But I found like what I find really helpful is movement. So going to the gym, putting on your headphones and
Mm.
just lifting weights. I find lifting weights really good. I find journaling really good. I always if I'm stressed, I find writing things down helps, and you know, mindfulness and
Mm.
some meditation sometimes as well. But yeah, and I try to instill that like to the kids today now. I know traditional dance teachers will be like, stress, you have to win, you have to come
Yeah.
first, you have to come second. We want that. Where I'm like, wow, you've put this much work in, isn't it great? Well done, you. And I always like, I had them last night here and I was like, right, we're going to do a little bit of breathing, a little bit of, if we're feeling a bit anxious, this is what
Mm.
we're going to do. So when you're standing inside a stage, you're going to do this. And it kind of mentally prepares them. And then I think as well, like going forward in life, they have that in their toolkit to use if they're feeling stressed.
Yeah, there's that, because the one thing, it's all obviously all connected to the mind and the body. So when we
Mm.
talk about for yourself, for the body, and obviously you mentioned there about lifting weights and stuff,
Yeah.
there's also the kind of to do with ballet, or in particular, I suppose ballet,
Yeah.
the stretching and the constant need to be completely in tune with your body.
Yeah.
Whereas people like the layman like myself, when it comes to dancing and stuff, I don't have that kind of thing of idea of like my hips must always be like
Yeah.
active and I need to be stretching. And you
Yeah.
go through a lot of. We had Monica Lockman on many years ago on the podcast, and she was talking about like the stuff that she had to put her body through to get to
Yeah.
a certain point.
Crazy.
It's that to me would be difficult mentally. Do you find like I know
It is. It is.
yeah, that because
It's
you
it
love the
is.
weights, but there's also all the stretching and the bits in between.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And like, you know, we'd have to be on point shoes. You'd have
Mm,
to be able to do splits. You have to be able to lift your leg up past 90 degrees and hold it. You have to have that control. You have
mhm,
to make sure everything's in balance, your technique, making sure, as you said, your hips are open, making sure that your knees and your thighs and your hamstrings are all pulled in, engaged, your glutes are engaged, your tummy muscles are engaged, your shoulders are down. Like there's a list, and it's a constant like run and commentary when
mhm.
you'd be dancing, especially with ballet and such high standard of technique, that you have to be aware. You have to be constantly aware of where you are in space, you
Is
know?
yeah, is that like uh, is that the reason?
Stressful.
It's
Yeah.
it's like, but I think I watch a lot of films and I've watched a lot of films about ballet and a lot of films about dance, like, but a lot of films about ballet in particular, and it's either really beautifully graceful or almost demonic, in that like they have the gorgeous moments in like the turning point in the red shoes and all these ones, Black
Yeah.
Swan and all, but the other side of it seems to be so though. It's darker on film because they need to make it dark, but there's obviously something
Yeah.
within that of why they think that ballet is so beautiful that but on the other side such a kind of horrible dark thing to kind of push through almost. Is that
Yeah.
the mental side that they're kind of speaking on?
I think so.
Mm.
I think it's physically and mentally demanding.
Mhm.
You know, when we were dancing, we're always being told, like by teachers, like in the past, it was always like, if you're in pain, you just smile and you smile through the pain and you don't look like you're in pain. You have to make it look easy. Nobody wants to see you struggling on stage. And like that was drilled into us, you know? Where like my teaching method is so different towards that. I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that to kids.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know. Like if you were younger and you're like, there was many times like I'd be on point shoes
Mm.
and you could be 7, 8 hours training on point and your feet would be just ripped to shreds. You'd have toenails falling off, you'd have blisters, you'd have bleeding, you'd have everything. And you'd have to still present yourself like, yeah, I'm fine. Nothing's wrong with me. Everything's great. Um, and you know, I think there's that element then of it just 360, like 180 changes, and you're on stage and everything's perfect and nothing's out of place. And you're like, that person is struggling so much inside physically, you know, the pain. Um, but I think that's just ballet.
Yeah. I do. I really like how they play that part of it in those films that I mentioned about the idea of everything's being graceful and beautiful and but
Mm.
really behind the scenes it's all horrible. But they obviously kind of Hollywood it a little bit and
Oh
kind of
yeah.
make it a little bit worse than it is. But at the same time, I think it's because it's such a graceful thing that the people who haven't done it see it as this kind of thing that's almost out of reach, that
Mm.
they can't even imagine how a person can be so, in control of their body, as well as their mind,
Yeah.
obviously, but the body in particular, because that's what we can see. And I think that's amazing to kind of to watch and to like I'm a bit of a troglodyte in certain kind of aspects of things, but I can admire like the beauty of it. I think what I so I was when I was talking to you the first time, and
Yeah.
I knew you were kind of the owner of the school, and I was kind of thinking you are quite young. I don't want to bring up your age, but you're quite young, and I was thinking like that's a lot of responsibility for anyone. But why did you want to become the owner of the School of Dance?
Um, I've always wanted, like, my main goal was to be a dance teacher, a ballet teacher. And then I was in college and I was doing my exams and I was covering for a maternity leave in different schools. And then I was covering for someone and they approached me and was like, right, I want to sell my school. Would you be interested? And I was like, 100%. Um, I was 23 at the time,
Mhm.
very young. And I was like, will I just take the risk? And I took the risk and I just built it up and I kept going. And, I know this is where I'm meant to be.
Yeah.
This is what I'm meant to do. Like, I couldn't see myself doing something else?
Yeah. Um, for the kind of side of it, I suppose that you were used to on the other side before you owned the school,
Mm.
which was the training and the dance. I know you did exams and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff kind of comes into it. How did you adapt to the kind of owner side of it, the kind of stuff that you have the admin stuff you have to do behind the scenes?
Yeah, that was a lot. And I went to teacher training college. So basically they teach you how to be a teacher.
Hmm.
But they only touch slightly in kind of business stuff and business terms and how you do this and how you run a business. And it was very briefly touched.
Mm.
So it was a massive learning curve. But I was lucky to have like my parents and other people around me who were very supportive and giving me advice and then I think of a lot of it is just you have to learn. You have to just do it yourself. I don't think reading a book would prepare you to actually run a business as such.
Yeah, the adaptation, the adaptation that you had to make was kind of almost instinctual, like because you don't really have a choice at that stage. When you're in it, you have to
When you're
learn
in
how to
it,
do it.
yeah.
Yeah, there's no way
Yeah.
around it. Um,
No.
but the up, also the transition to becoming like obviously you were a teacher anyway, but to become the owner, and the pressure that kind of brings on it because it's not just about admin and making sure that everything's working right. Like if a tap's dripping, you have to get that fixed. That all those kind of things. Like
Oh, bits and bobs,
yeah,
yeah.
but all those things. But then also being the owner of and being the one that people look up to. And you've mentioned it kind of before about the idea of you don't coach the same way as maybe you are
Mm.
coached by some people. Um,
Yeah.
why did you feel that you had to change? Like, why did you feel you had to approach it a different way, or was it just the way you are?
I think it's because I think everything's changing in the world
Hmm.
and things can't stay the same. So I think I think children respond better to positivity. I think humans in general respond better to positive kind of comments rather than negative. Oh, you
Hmm.
can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Can't do this. Lift your leg higher. Why can't you lift it higher? So my attitude is like when a child's like, I can't do this or I can't do it. And I was like, you can. I was like, there's no such thing as you can't in here. I said, you can't say the word can't. And I think they appreciate that as
Yeah.
well. Like they enjoy coming in here and we've built up such a good friendship between the parents and the students. And I think as well, like I try to bring the best out of them.
Yeah.
And it's to know, I think that's what makes my teaching different is to know that I can tell when someone's doing their best. It might be the best, but
Mhm.
it's their best, and that's all that matters. Like, not everyone's going to come in and be a professional ballerina or a professional dancer. Same way everyone who plays soccer or football are going to come in, and they're not all going to make it in the UK
Yeah.
and join Premiership teams,
Yeah.
So it's trying to change the mindset of teaching as well,
Yeah, there's the whole kind of idea of people responding to different things, and I think that whole thing of like getting shouted at, like
Yeah.
if I was in being doing my training and somebody was shouting at me, my response would be immediately to kind of down tools. Now that's just me. That's ever some
Yeah.
people would be like, oh great, I love this stuff.
Mm.
But to me, for someone to kind of approach me and say, "Look, this is maybe you could help you help yourself if you lift it like this or you move like,"
Yeah.
and that to me is just a way more positive way of approaching a situation.
100%.
Yeah,
And I think especially with kids, they don't
yeah,
react well. It's, yeah, I understand like in the gym, or if you're, I don't know, in a boot camp, kind of
yeah,
fitness boot camp or whatever, you kind of get the adrenaline, you get the buzz of someone being like, come on, come on. Yeah, that's fine. But I think working with kids is so different.
yeah.
And especially since COVID, a lot of kids were very sheltered, very sensitive, and very anxious leaving their parents, very anxious leaving their homes. So trying to reintroduce them to social situations. And then imagine if I was standing there shouting, that wouldn't work.
It wouldn't, and kids should be leaving smiling and happy
Yeah.
rather than like oh God, I could shout at it today again. But um, what age groups do you teach?
I teach from ages 3 up. But yeah, 3,
It's
little
very
top.
cute. It-
My oldest, so I also teach, I'm very passionate for working with people with like autism or
Nice,
any sort of neurodiversity or a disability. So I teach, and the oldest I teach there is 21.
right?
So I have a Saturday morning class, and this is my first Saturday off.
Really?
So I don't know myself. But I teach them every Saturday morning, and it's just a group of teenagers.
Right.
And it's great. It's great for them.
And how is the approach towards people with autism or neurodivergent? Like what? How because obviously there's certain ways not to do things.
Hmm.
Um, how did you know? Had you kind of studied about, had looked it up or studied
Yeah, like
about?
I did courses,
Okay.
and then I was starting to do private lessons, and the girl in the private lesson was like, "Oh, can I bring a friend one day?" I was like, "Of course you can, whatever you want." And then her mom recommended me to someone, and then we just came up with this group, and it started off with 6, and now we have 12 in the group.
Well,
Yeah.
excellent. That's a
Yeah,
great. Like it's a
yeah,
great.
it's great. It
Yeah.
is great.
Um, we in the gym where I work, it's similar where we like to bring everybody in, but we also need to make sure that like people aren't going to respond well to the banging music that we have on, like our,
Yeah.
in jiu-jitsu, throwing them in with someone and say, get in there and like, don't get choked, that kind of a thing. It's like that with everybody, but I think, you have to be wary of how people are and how people react to things because we know in certain environments, it's not going
Yeah.
to be healthy for them at all. Like, and probably maybe they might retreat, you know,
Hmm.
even
Yeah.
further or something, so it is one of those things where we all look, we're all still learning about that, it's
Yeah,
not before
100%
time, you know what I mean? We've taken long enough to
to
really
do it.
step
Yeah.
up, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a very positive thing, but um how do you because we teach kids as well, jujitsu, and like sometimes the 4 is the youngest we teach, but like if trying to
Yeah.
teach a 4-year-old jujitsu is kind of it's a different experience, it's how do you go about like with a 3-year-old try to get them
Teaching.
to, yeah, yeah,
So basically, everything I teach is through stories, through songs, and through imagination for that age. So I'm creating stories. I'm creating, okay, we're going on our bicycle today. Where are we going? And I'm getting them to interact and give me feedback. And then I'll go, okay, we're going here. We're going to get ice cream. What ice cream are you going to get? And it's kind of keeping them interested, keeping them focused. And then we'll do like a free movement. So I'll put on a song. 9 times out of 10, it's Frozen. and
Yeah.
we all dance around Frozen, and it gives them a movement break. Then we go back and we work on a little bit of technique. But again, it's using shapes, it's using scarves, it's using props, it's using wands, it's using things that they're like, wow, you know, and it keeps them engaged then.
Yeah. And when it comes to things like the competition, like you're talking about today,
Yeah.
do you choreograph the what they're going to do?
Yeah, I do. I do. I have 18 dances choreographed for this competition.
18
So
dances.
18, yeah,
Oh yeah.
18.
Wow.
So I was trying to think of songs, trying to think of costumes, trying to think of what the child would like,
Hmm.
what they're good at, and what shows them off as a dancer as well. So
Can I
yeah.
ask then about the creative side of it?
Hmm.
Like I said, I think people who maybe play music can sit down and kind of figure out, oh, look, this is how I'm going to write a song on a
Yeah.
piano or guitar. Like, so obviously you can't, or can you sit down and start to map it out in your head before you're moving, or do you move first and then figure it out as you go along?
Yeah, so a lot of people have different ways of choreographing. So some people will sit down with a
Hmm.
notebook and they'll write, okay, right, I like this idea. I'll go with this and I'll try that, try this, and they'll have different ideas, different steps. But other people then would get up and move. Um, I tend to end up when I'm driving up down the road 50
Right,
million times a week. I would think of something when I'm driving. I'd listen to a song, something would click, and I'd go, okay, I'll keep that in my head. And then I'll start dancing to that song and creating then.
right.
But I think it works for me to think of the song first and then think of, okay, what am I going to do?
Yeah, I think that makes you know, I try to think in terms of, say, if I'm writing something, I try and think in terms of melody maybe, and then you kind of work backward towards the chord progressions. You know what I mean? It's like, and I just try
Yeah.
to figure out something physical is so interesting for me because I obviously work in just in music and writing. But I love, like, so you're just driving along the idea of sitting and listening to music, and then as you, I'd like the idea. I'd love to be able to
Yeah.
do something like that. You know,
Yeah.
it'd be really nice. But it's
I don't do it intentionally.
right.
I don't do it intentionally. I could be out socializing and I'll hear a song and be like, right, that would suit whatever. That would suit her for the next competition, or that'd be great in the show.
Yeah.
Or okay, I'm going to write that song down. And I have on my notes on my phone all the different songs. Or I was actually really interesting. I was in France dancing and I was we were working with a group and they were touring in France at the time of contemporary dancers and we were listening to their choreographer speak. She came in and gave us a talk and her method was so interesting. So she sits down with a piece of paper and say four different color highlighters if there was four people dancing or five, and she'll just draw lines all over the page, scribbles, and then she'll map out. So say it was an S shape or whatever shape, that person will dance in that'll be their pattern across the
Right.
floor. And then she'll create the moves they do in the direction. I was like, that's so interesting.
That's very linear or something. That's probably not the right
Yeah,
description,
true.
but just kind of outside the box thinking in full,
Oh,
you know,
100%.
it's,
It
it's
was
good.
so creative. I was like, wow,
How do you think your students would describe you? That's a terrible question.
I don't know. I think they would describe me as very positive
Yeah.
and very kind of supportive. Um, and I think they would describe me as someone they could come to. You know, if they were
Mm.
worried about something, they'd come to me. And I think they would also describe me as busy, that I never stop.
Yeah.
Um, and they'd also describe me as always having a cup of coffee in my hand. So one of them told
That's,
me that the other day.
well, that's
Yeah.
positive stuff. Like, you know, if you
Yeah.
like your caffeine, you like your caffeine, you know,
I like my caffeine. I try to limit it now, but it's
it's hard,
yeah.
isn't it? It's hard to cut
Hard.
it down. Yeah, it's hard, especially if it's something that keeps you going in certain moments. It's very difficult
Yeah.
to kind of cut down. Where are your schools located, actually?
So I'm here in the studio in Moat. So
Mhm.
I'm in County Westmeath, and then I'm in Blackrock, Dunleary, Dalkey, and Dundrum.
Oh, right, you're all. Oh, there's a few up there.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, like my mom's up in Blackrock, so it'd be
Is
close.
she?
Yeah, she is actually. Yeah, so she'd be close enough to one of your schools up there as well. And I obviously close enough to your one out in Moat as well.
Yeah,
A bit too old to join now, but
never too old.
you're never too old to do ballet. No, you know what? You're right though. It's not a good, it's not it's never been a good way of looking at things to say you're too old to be doing those things.
I know.
Um, are you someone who can also like cut a few shapes on the dance floor as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But is
But
it
then
like,
some,
is it hard to do that? Is it hard to do that, to swap over from something quite, like ballet? But I know you trained in other dance
yeah,
as
so I
well.
teach a variety of styles.
Yeah,
I'm also trained in jazz,
right,
and I went over to London and trained in acro. So that's a mixture of dance and gymnastics put together.
right.
It's kind of very popular at the minute because of dance moms. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
No,
And a lot of the kids are like watching it on the TV and stuff. So, it's something that's quite current. So I went over and trained with the acrobatic arts.
right.
And yeah, so I teach that. I could teach contemporary lyrical. And then as I said, I've done jazz and
Yeah,
modern, like, so, I have a rainbow of dance moves in my collection.
which is
Yeah.
good. So what do you like to do in your spare time when you aren't working?
I like going for walks. I like
Yeah.
putting on headphones and going walking. I like I like being by the sea. I think
Mm,
especially because it's so nice down the pier in Dunleary or anywhere like that. It's so relaxing, and it just, I don't know what it is. It's nice to decompress after work or before work, going for a coffee and a walk down the pier. I like going to the gym. I like
yeah.
swimming, that sort of thing.
Yeah, all good, like all again, good positive things for mind and body, like obviously.
Yeah.
Um, so you have to spend a lot of time then between the schools. You have to do a lot of traveling up and down.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
traveling.
Is that all right?
I don't mind. Yeah, I think the
Okay.
car can drive itself at this stage. So I'm just so used to it.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask people now all the time. Do you drive a manual?
I do. Yeah, I
Interesting.
do.
Yeah. Have you ever driven
And
an automatic?
I don't know if I could go to an automatic.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's really funny, though, Shauna, because I was talking to someone just today, and they're around my age, in just early 40s, kind of, and they said that they wouldn't drive an automatic. They'd be freaked out by the idea of just the one foot and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But because I had only done 8 lessons in manual, I had no real base of them of reaching down for the gear. So when my adaptation to automatic was just so smooth then because I wasn't thinking about clutch or
yeah, you weren't thinking,
you
you
know
just
it
did it.
it was
Yeah.
so nice. Like I'm just gonna sorry, I'm just talking about myself now.
No, I think, and I would like to try an automatic. Like
Yeah.
my partner, he has an automatic now,
What does he?
but yeah, and he was like, after buying that car, he was like, I'd never go back to a manual.
You've got to try it though,
I
just
have to
see.
try it.
You might never
Everyone's
go back
talking
to.
about it.
Yeah, but it is a big buzz at the moment, especially since I mentioned it last week. But this is all like obviously something. The way things have worked out for you is obviously something that you've kind of, I suppose, something that you were aiming for in the first place.
Yeah, I worked really hard. I done all my teaching exams. I'm always trying to keep up with doing courses
Mhm.
and continuing my own learning. And just trying to get as much knowledge as you can as a teacher to pass it down. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's when I was kind of half joking about your age and how quickly you've been able to do all this stuff, it's very inspiring for younger people coming through with the idea that they can achieve something like this in something that they love. It doesn't have to be something that's like, oh, I get up every
yeah,
morning and dread it. Like, and I think that's something
yeah.
that's quite inspiring and should be mentioned, by by me, like I
Thank
just
you.
did. But no, but I think it's great that someone who's so into that particular thing that can go on and not just like run their own businesses, but actually inspire younger people to follow on for their dream. And like, how many people are going with you this evening?
We have 21 going this evening,
Right.
and they're all from Moat, except one
Aren't
girl's
they?
from Dublin. Yeah. And it's amazing. Like the kids here in Moat are phenomenal. They work so hard. Like I have a core kind of group of the older kids that like they're like, what can I do next? How do I improve? What do I look? I've been doing this at home. Look, I videoed myself every day doing the splits, so I'd get the splits. Or they're so eager to learn, which is amazing, and they're so inspired. Like,
Yeah.
and what I'm trying to do is create opportunities for them at a young age to get used to performance. So we've been we've been in the Helix about 3 or 4 times performing. I brought like 25 kids from Mo to the Helix to perform, and it was great. Like it was great.
Brilliant.
And such a big stage. We've done the RDS, we performed in the
Wow.
main stage. And that was amazing. Like that was amazing.
Yeah.
What else have they done? They got to the All Irelands in Belfast,
Wow. Yeah.
and
Class.
they competed against like schools in the UK and Ireland, and we had a few placing and winning. So it was
Brilliant.
amazing. Yeah, like
Shauna,
it was fantastic.
Shauna, it's very inspiring to hear it all. And I don't know why Zoom are trying to cut me off for some reason. I don't know if
That's
you
all
see
right.
me being tense here, but it keeps saying less than a minute. I don't know what that means. I don't know why, but you've been an amazing guest, Shauna. I can't thank you enough for coming on.
No
And
problem, and thank you so much for having
of
me.
course,
I
and
really appreciate it.
from everyone, best of luck tonight, of course.
Thank you so
Listen,
much.
hopefully I see you on the other side. They're not just going to cut us off
Yeah.
completely. But for the people who are still, the people who are listening, thank